Alright, Chapter 4, Implementation of Decommission Frame. With a decommission frame, with a compromise, with the temp, with the take, with the facility, with the with the inside, with the decommission prop, with the pre-decommission, with the pre-prior, from pre-decision to close out, necessary for the long term, with the monitoring, with the tweak, with the links required, with the activity systematic frame, with the decommission frame, with the depict, with the flow chart, with the described in the second, with the framework, encompassed with the decommission activities, compliant with the generic regulatory commission license, with the permits, with the order, with the issue, with the RCRA, with the program, and requirement with the Department of Energy, the directive, as well as the circular, implement data integrated safety management provided within the framework specified by the incorporation of the work facility, the safety activities, commission, working, planning, execution, all capable of generated graded approaches to the approach. Chapter walks through each step of the framework with compromise 6 day with the activities typically required with the info and facility life cycle with the pre-decision pull with the decommission appropriate reference with the made when the step of the correspond with the directly with the circular with the specified the national oil hazard with the substandard pollution contingency plan with it is codified within Title 4300 reference with the companion with the facility disposition guide with the document included where appropriate symbols matching symbols show the continuity of the one chart to the next pre-decision. Part of the decommission facility typically with the table known with the condition material with the server the maintenance mate program when they deactivated that will have the belonging table with complete for the deactivation, complement the deactivation, stay with the describe with the Department of Energy G4313 with the deactivation implementation guide with the companion with the present guide. Your server the maintenance of the program and the effect with the consistent with the requirement of the environmental health, safety, radiation protection that is designated with the cost effectiveness for the detail with the Department of Energy 4301. 182 with the surveillance of the maintenance during the facility disposition, also companion to this guide. Step 1, conducting ongoing surveillance maintenance with the general facility with a portion that will have the play for the table with the dome with the shutdown with the surveillance maintenance program. Conversely, the facility may enter the disposition phase direct for the decommission with a condition and the operating history unknown. In this case, the steps that are described in the Department of Energy G4301-2 with the implementation guide with the surveillance maintenance during facility with the transition disposition provided with the general overview with the determining status for the condition of facility. Typical decommission for the candidate facility will be the surveillance maintenance mode with the lower budget process for the proceed with the decommission will be planned with the future of the date and some case with the facility transfer the direct with the deactivation and decommission without the interim period surveillance and maintenance with the facility with the will continue with the server and maintenance valve with the onto for the post ID activation surveillance maintenance planning similar with the facility may transit direct with the operating program and decommission for the interim with the period of the surveillance and maintenance facility with the performance surveillance and maintenance continuing operating plan maintenance with regards to scenario the surveillance and maintenance should be guided with a written program prepared with the quorum with the principle described in the Department of Energy G4301-2 time of the facility depends with the surveillance and maintenance mode with the depends with the condition with the specified with the facility when the pub with the some of the operating facilities were shut down expectation with the restart with the time span with the restart exemptions when not realized with the facilities were generally now in the surveillance mode with the deactivation proceeding after the fact. A general high risk urgent situation from the NRC with the demanded schedule of decommission profit will be will proceed promptly with low risk situation in many of the years maybe the collapse before the budget priority conservation make funds available to decommission assuming no adverse change with the facility condition with the during the time to cover the difference such with the use time with the time interval steps in 1 and 2 within 4 or 4 can vary greatly as conditions change over the surveillance mode maintenance authorization base for the changing according with the surveillance maintenance program will need for the update with the reflect change of the system of surveillance and maintenance activities continue necessary with the decision proceed with the decommission made early on of sometime in the lapse of the facility ultimate disposition accomplished. Determination of the action, state of the evaluation factor of the NCP, National Oil Contingency Plan, Section 300, 415B2 will be assessed or any other data collected necessary to determine the decommission appropriate evaluation factors include impact with the nearby human and animal food chain, contamination for the drinking and water supply, sensitive for the ecosystem, material with the drum of the barrel with the tanks or over the bulk, container with the over the threat or leave the material within soil with near the surface of the maybe the integrated fire for weather that may cover the material with the mitigate or be released 6 with the threat of fire with explosion 7 availability with the appropriate federal state with the respond with the mechanism to respond to the police 8 other situation factors that may pose threat of the public health the welfare of the environment the documentation include the facility disposition threats of the work of the public health the environment brief for the proceeding of the decommissioning even under the regulatory scenario with the problematic decision Department of Energy shall conduct with the Environmental Protection Agency state conserve the determination consistent applicable law local agreements. The Department of Energy shall apply a greater approach for determining nature for the extent of the documentation appropriate to with consistent with the regulatory problematic authority with which for the decommission decision is made with the local agreements is applicable. 2. Problem to discover the step of the corresponding with the discovery the Title 4300 4005 of the step of the made the trick with the discover the relief of the threat and relief of the hazard substance include with the radionuclide within this environment with some of the other circumstance problem the problematic decision with the consider the proceeding of the decommissioning factual relief of the hazard material that involve the typical relief of the routinely with the action with the government contractor employed with the hell with it might be to report with the directly with the Department of Energy official with the public throw report over the national response and with the relief of the actual threat and with the demands primarily with the temporary condition action relief of the observable detectable the entry of the threat of the revolves involved with the judgment concerning the events have not occurred but yet may occur in appropriate matters for the considered include conditions storage for the containers areas contamination of evidence structural failure condition on the roof windows and doors evidence of human and wind and water intrusion. By the nature of the facility decommissioning program, the age of the sum of the degree of the deterioration of the curve of the determination of the substantial threat of the release of the decision made with the case-to-case made with the consolation of the region with the Environmental Protection Agency, state of the tribal or local official to provide with the local agreements. Notification National Response Center is and required to relieve and threaten relief of the hazard substance of the certain quantity of the notification required with the quantity of the did not exceed the reportable quantity of the Title 40 CFR 302, or if the release is authorized with the federal permit in addition with the Title 40 350, 355, 370, and 372 Committee right no requirement. State Emergency Response Commission of the local Emergency Planning Committee with the being notified with the amount exceeding the established threshold with extremely hazardous substance exists for the release for the environment that could result in exposure of the person outside of the facility boundaries. Is the natural breach of it or maybe the injury of the release for the appropriate state and federal trustee with the effect of the breach of the being notified with the Department of Energy federal trustee with the natural breach of the located with the local land administrator with the Department of Energy. The department shall have the share of the trustee with the responsibility of the federal agency the state with the act of the Native American tribe with the other actions required with the assessment evaluation and investigation planning with the bird Title 4300 410G where possible such action incorporated in related to decommissioning activities actions and documents as applicable. Depending on the circumstances some of the type of the necessary with the might would include the emergency act for example the response spell leak with the non-critical removal action unless the urgency of the emergency where the response will require with at least less than 6 months with the final interim of the remedial action circumstance of the warrant possible that after some of the response with the described logic flow would lead back to step 1 for the continuing surveillance and maintenance. Step 3 is assess the need with the desirable decommission with the steps and the evaluation situation for the determining the action from the purpose include the review of the existing document of authorized bait for the reactive element deactivation, dedocumentation including the defined decommission objective for the pre-train for the review rate. Review report describing the Department of Energy G43015 of the existing surveillance program, information examine the program and as follows. Facility history, consider the operating history of the facility with the obtainment of the knowledge of the nuclear, chemical, and the material with the handle with the potential spill of the leak that might be occurred with an interview with the former operating committee with the personnel with the appropriate knowledge of the facility modification. Presence is built with the drawing that is important. Deactivation process is the man with which the facility with the taken down with the actions for the place within stable shutdown configuration safety envelope with the defined with the safety assessment with the safety analysis report. Similar documentation, technical specification, limiting condition of documents may exist to be reviewed and ensure the presence of unresolved safety issue with the identified plan to develop the address of the situation, the activation, completion package, equivalent documentation available for review. Surveillance and maintenance. Surveillance and maintenance plan with the will to describe the action with the will to plan with the maintain with the inspect with the facility in order to contain with the contamination of the present with the public health and safety work with the public to avoid with the impact of the environment of the game with the maintain with safety envelope specified with the facility with the routine surveillance maintenance annual reports will share with the records of the benefit during the surveillance and maintenance period with the facility. Physical condition with the surveillance and maintenance records for the one indicate physical staff of the facility to be useful to detection trend with the indicate with the impending problems over the information facility include with the facility information management system. Preliminary characterization data for this information forecast of the nature, location, contamination, nuclei, chemical for the consistency with the facility, the general map of the dose rate for the airborne contamination. Rad or non-RAV should be available to character of the data for the documents for the accumulated during the deactivation and applicable to the starting point with the data are not available to be collected and cite inspection if the information about the quantity of the available to distribute the explain same with the quantity of the information is not with the primary agent for the primary assessment. Preliminary hazard analysis, hazard of the presence of the facility with the risk of the presence of the have identified with the appropriate feature for the community incorporated service analysis for the keep it impact for the people with the environmental low with acceptable level of the information reviewed confirmation stat with the determinant additional have of the presence of the Department of Energy standard 11 2098 section 3.2 with the integrated hazard analysis to provide further discussion of hazard analysis. Considering the circular response with appropriate additional factors will be explained with the nuclear ends of the section 101.22c with the circular exclude with the definition for the release for the aim for the product with the special nuclear material for the nuclear incident with the relief of the coverage with the financial protection requirement with the emphasis for the add with the establish the nuclear regulatory commission. Uranium mining site section 101.22c with a circular provide with additional exclusion over the terminal leave with the release for the surface over the product, especially with the nuclear material with the any process with the site with the design section 102 with the A1 or 302 with the A uranium mill tailing radiation control act with the curve with the response with the circular is not necessary with the federal permit relief of the circular section 101.10 the definition finds federally permitted release for the terms of release for the permitted specifically environmental statutes. If the relief of the curve of the vessel fulfilled with the permitted term of the environmental statute list for the circular section 101.10 of the response action may not be appropriate. The environmental protection agency to propose the regulation clarify the scope of the federal permitted release exemption of July 19th, 1988. A supplemental notice of proposed rulemaking appeared on July 11th, 1989, providing additional clarification in section 101.10H of exemption of the air release. Petroleum has as defined in circular section 101.14 when they include the term of the petroleum and include crude oil any fraction thereof that is not specified by the list of the designate of the headers of the EPA with the issue with the memo to clarify the exemption of July 31st, 1978 and 1987. State that the exclusion applied with the product petroleum product with the derivative is a neutral natural synthetic gas with a mixture of the natural and get a gas with the exclusion, however, it does not cover contaminants present even in oil with any other petroleum substance contaminants or substances normally found with the refined petroleum fraction present with the level of which the normal found in such fractions. Underground sourcing of the medium underground stream with the government with the RCR, specified in Title 40 CFR 280, other consideration, workplace exposure with fertilization application, engine exhaust emissions excluded from the definition of the release under circular of section 101.22. Additional consideration with addition status information factor to be considered the point with include the statistical history, state historic preservation with the office of approval of the site evaluation, include with the perimeter with the onsite with inspection. Physical inspection must be planned with the maintain work health and safety, protect public environmental service maintenance health and safety program to derive with the authorization base if it will be with the foundation augmented with the necessary to assure protection for the during inspection. Alright, step 4, conducting decommission. Step 4, provide with the decision with the point with the value whether or not to go forward with the decommission. At the time the decision with the deck for the decommission could be triggered in 2 days, describing the step 2 and 3 above. The 1 over the decommission provide for the initiative to respond with the problem ahead with discover the site evaluation for its flexibility to determine the circular respond with the warrants for the other appropriate federal state respond with the necessary with available to define circular and non-circular action for the consider at this point include the following: permits not recover the decommission conducted with a circular respond with the legal provision will come with the given and arrive at the need with the permits will include with the applicable the relevant and appropriate requirements otherwise necessary with it must be obtained with the environmental sample with its collected sampling with an analysis plan with submitted with the environmental particularly the decommission conduct for the circular response other sampling analysis does not require the outside approval of the decommission product just conducted with the circular response with the involved with the EPA with the state with the required with the policy of decommission of the circular shall involve in the consistent provision of the site-wide complying with the agreement is there. 1. The decommission of the project with the conducted in the nuclear war to NRC for the decommission plan with the RCRA problem Resource Conservation Recovery Act. The permits order that may be needed to meet requirements specifically of those playing with the permits order with some of the additional information specified under these plans. The permits are ordered the decommission project with the circular with the must adhere with the public participation administrative the records requirement of the National Oil Contingency Policy with the separate review of the environmental impact with the National Environmental Policy Act is not required with the review of the complex with incorporated in any National Environmental Protection Agency value of the decision documentation prepare and circular process. Public participation essential for the decommission framework of the project with the comprehensive energy emergency resource recovery Liability Act, the Decommission Project Committee shall ensure that the stakeholder that informed of the decommission decision activated in case of the National Environmental Protection Agency process provide with a review with environmental impact with the public participation. Circular response may be necessary for the facility with a list of it in the NRC beginning with the decommission conference with the NRC with approve of the decommission plan with the facility may be discriminated compliant with the RC Resource Conservation Recovery Act. The permit over the release for the substantial threat with the relief is not present with the facility with the amount with the head substance present do not warrant the federal response. The Department of Energy consult with the EPA with the state with the concern with the decision according with the applicable site agreements. Problematic decision proceed with the decommission for the initiative of the process over the surveillance malance for the step 4 for the immediate follow step with the 1 in this case of the problematic decision the Department of Energy may consider the other factor that may decision decommission facility under the authority with the Atomic Energy Act for the building may be more costly to maintain with the dismantling with the bill budget windfall with the and asset management in multiple sites. In either case, stepping third together key factor determining whether or not decommission proceeding time if the also the decommission does the proceed with the process the outlining framework determination is made with the process of decommission profit to continue within step 6 if the decision is made with the decommission not appropriate at the time. The step 1 surveillance and maintenance will be continued until the future time and appropriate step 4 is again considered. Step 5. Continuing surveillance, maintenance, and surveillance and maintenance as appropriate with the step that depicts the continuous surveillance and maintenance parallel activity through the phase of the given the decision of the planning of the problematic action. The surveillance and maintenance activity continue throughout the life of the decommission project until phased out of the manager during the decommissioning operation. Step 19. Converted with a long-term post cleanup situation. Step 22. Alright, step 6, preparing decommission project support, scope of the documentation baseline. Step of the table of the preparation for the decommission project, scope of the documentation, preliminary project plan with the scope of the documentation, conceptual of the define with the objective of the endpoint of the project, established with the preliminary technical scope of the cost, scale of the baseline range for the project, the scoping of the document, preliminary project plan with the describe of the general approval to be taken for the project, for the safety, health of the work, for the project, for the working and public project, for the environmental extent, for the manager, for the determinant of the stage project, of additional of the document, identifies the approach for the readiness of the review, and step 7 of the team involved with the appropriate with the decommission endpoint, but it should be determined as easily and possible for section 3.3 for the further discussion endpoint for the endpoints provided with the passages for the identify for the assessing alternative planning and work. Decommissioning endpoint that must be given consistent with the applicable land facility for the plans with any planned site remediation activities. Alright, shows shooting the decommission A1, and it goes down to continuing surveillance maintenance and appropriate. And with the B1, you have A, review the data determining extent of the action. You have plan A, develop a characterization plan including sample analysis, HASP, conduct characterization documentation. 9, conduct risk assessment, conduct safety analysis. And you also have parallel integrated interrelated paths A, B, and C. Through path A, you had conducting safety analysis, alternative results, document analysis, decommission activities, respond to public comments, final decision. And also part B and C have the conduct risk assessment, conduct safety analysis, evaluate proper respond to document A, determine part D, define conduct activities, inform involved stakeholders, respond to public comments, document final decision. Alright, 4.3. Choosing the decommission alternative, the stage of the process is involved with the collecting of additional information, performing additional analysis, identify with the decommission alternative, and choose the most of the appropriate alternative, and put with the public appropriate with the decommission endpoint for the drive of the development analysis, the alternative during the phase of the subject, regulatory stakeholder review, comment with the incorporate with the life cycle assessment, with the management, with the great approach, that will be applied with the development of documentation system, with the state of the evaluation fact with the result of the documented appropriate through an individual document is not required for each step. Step 7, the review of the data with the determined extent of the action from the start. Step of the process of selecting, evaluating, decommission alternative of the portion thereof of all details compiled in the point of the review to include but not limited to information gathered the transition, deactivation, surveillance, maintenance, move the site evaluation, review of the facility history of the preliminary hazard of the characterization, project scope of the documentation, preliminary project plan, obvious starting point with the selecting the potential alternative of the project, the scope of the documentation, preliminary project with preparing the chapter 6 with the have with the term of the year with the lab center for the preliminary project plan was prepared with the appropriate review, the update with the list of the potential observers, the consider the fact of the type of the action for the described in the National Oil Contingency Plan, Title 40 to the honored 415B2 and D, with among others follow the identification candidate alternative with the 4 parallel yet interrelated plan. Paths of the action will leave the select with the appropriate alternative of the site agreement is successful with the manner condition with the EPA with the state with the determining the level of regulatory involvement when what response action with the appropriate facility on the national priority list with the national NRC with approve of the decommission plan with the reserve resource conservation recovery act permanent for the hours with the also specified coordinator between the regulatory and the Department of Energy and the decommissioning not proceed with the circular with the management the detention for the point with the need to obtain long legal permits permitting requirement of the decommission project must be evaluated early frequently with the time requirements permits for the not impending with the time of the completion of the project. Step 8. We develop a characterization plan with an included example to nail for the HASP with the step of the continue the process of the characterization facility area with the continuity facility with the necessary with the nature of the contamination identified where the facility has character of the part of the deactivation of the deactivated specified endpoint with the need with the characterization may be satisfied with the characterization data and documents the result of the deactivation activities the life cycle cost assessment with the characterization results of the document prior to deactivation activity shall be augmented necessary reflect with the change of the facility conditions of the during the disposition process help entail the preparation character of the plan additional characterization required of the plan the National Oil Contingency Plan requirements Title 4300 415B42 with the field sample plan and a quality assurance plan refers to the collective sample analysis plan the National Oil Contingency Policy requirement of Title 40 CFR 300 415B42 sampling and analysis of the EPA with the review approval of the circular actions only must be satisfied with the environment soil with the surface water groundwater samples to be collected. Plan must include the health and safety plan as field sampling work to ensure the adequate control of the work safety while conducting characterization activities, assessment, physical condition with the Department of Energy involved with the other problematic requirements of the Department of Energy Standard 11209. 8, Section 334 has a baseline documentation for their discussion. Step 9, conduct characterization document rules. Step 10, table the conduct of the field of the characterization work data analysis of the documentation, appropriate grade of the approach with the shall be applied with the collection analysis of the data of the associated documentation. Step 10, conduct risk of the step 10, table the preparation risk assessment for the safety analysis evaluation decommission alternative. The focus should be on environmental safety health risk associated with the decommissioning alternative using grade approach for the scope of the depth of the assessment should be in proportion with the potential result of the actual conditions of the facility. Step 11, it conducts the fire safety analysis for the step and table the analysis for the hazard for the identification of the mitigation activities associated with the decommission alternative performed with the grade conformed with the Department of Energy 5481B, 548023 with each of the alternative hazard risk already to be identified with the mitigation method with the provide with the decommission plan with the described in section 3.2 with the integrated health hazard analysis, section 3.3 hazard communication ESNH documentation Department of Energy Standard 112098 provide guidance integrated hazard analysis hazard control with the respective which should be consulted during this step. Alright, step 12, to define and conduct the activities informed the involved with the takeover of the Department of Energy field off with the response with the developing, implementing, craft the public and participation plan with the program environmental restoration. After it must be established public participation program and established program to provide with the activities. Steps 12 and 14 must be filed with the LU with the specific steps for the guidance for the provide with the Department of Energy EH0221 public participation environmental restoration activities. Use Department of Energy Office of Environmental Guidance RCRA Circular Division EH231 November 1991. Steps initiate the process involved with the stakeholder the selection of the decommission officer of the initial step of the national oil contingency policy requirement of Title 4341.5M1 designated the spokesperson inform the community of the action take for respondent inquire with the provide information concerning the relief the right of the release and notify of the affected citizens of the official with an appropriate secretary policy of the National Environmental Policy Act U.S. Department of Energy June 1994 emphasize the importance of earlier public environment and circular property making the circular documents available to the public early if it's possible to keep it in the National Environmental Protection Agency process. If the decommission is proceeded and is not proceeding with the circular response with the public participation required with the National Environmental Protection Agency will apply. This step includes the establishment and administration of the record circular action steps for the National Oil Contingency Plan Title 40 CFR 300-800. Administer the record established soon with the possible after the decommissioning scope of the document preliminary project with the prepare with step 6 no later than issue the public commitment with the documentation and for the decommission alternative with step 14 record containing result of step 3 of the evaluation factual information analysis upon the decision to conduct the response with the action based on the additional information developed forms of the basis of selection of the response action. Such information include public comment with the Department of Energy response with include the administrative response record activity steps include the conduct review of the preparing formal community relations the plan the establish maintain the information repository with the decommission providence for the circular removal of the action where on-site action expected to the extend beyond 120 days for the initiation of the on-site removal of Title 4300-415 M3 per Title 40 CFR 300-415 M41. These actions must complete with the prior to the completion of the analysis alternative step 13. Step 13, evaluating alternative with the proposed response of the document and now for the decommission alternative. The use the information steps to proceed with the Department of Energy formulated value with the decommission officer selected with identified with the prepared alternative the analysis with the decommission alternative with the commentary with the scope of the complexity of the decommission project consistent with the grade approach the secretarial policy for the National Environmental Policy Act with the U.S. Department of Energy June 1994 provide with the incorporated the National Environmental Protection Agency with the value with the circular with the document with the analysis with the cumulative with the offsite with the ecological social economic impacts with the extent of the practical with the decommission with the not performing the circular with the response of the National Environmental Protection Agency evaluation required during this step. Alright, step 14, respond to public comment. With the step in the table to provide for the opportunity for the public to review the comment and alternative associated with the public comment, the review of the written response with the may be notified of the significant public comment to the step circular action, the step that involve the publication of the major local newspaper, the notice available with the analysis of the decommission alternative by 30 calendar days or 45 or more upon time request submitting written requests or oral comments with the analysis complying with the Title 40 CFR 300-415 M42 N3. Public comments review with the written response made significant public comments with the pursuit of the Title 43 300 820. Step 5, document final decision. Final decision selecting the decommission of the action for the document of the decision, taking into account the analysis of the decommission, also the commands of the receipt of the analysis for the appropriate commitments received prior to the analysis comment period of the determination step of the will must be documented. Apple reports from the Environmental Protection Agency acts memorandum format may be the documentation determination. Department of Energy consult with the regulatory concern with the decision in the manner consistent with the act with the local agreement of the NRC to approve of the decommission plan, resource conservation recovery act permits and orders. And this shows a chart in 4644 engineering planning. Step 16. Some of the things described the engineering planning work with the, must be performed in the job of the specific risk of the during with the decommission, provide with the measure for the mitigate with the risk, protect with the work, public environment, decommission endpoint with the relief with the specific alternative with the detail of the planning, and include with the determination criteria with the determining endpoint that has been achieved. Step 16. Preparing with the decommissioning of the project plan with the health and safety plan of the steps include with the engineering planning with the work required with the prepare with the decommission project plan with global documentation coordinated with the regulatory with the regulators doing the step with the subject with the local agreement with the circle of the national NRC with the approve of the decommission plan with the RCRA permits the order with the NAPA provision 7 of the national priority list of the works described with the decommission project for the plan be consistent with long-term remedies on site. When work plans are needed to include the integrated safety health considerations with the work plan to protect the facility safety during decommission, include the development of performance to indicate the creation ensure the adequate protection during the site project execution. Section 3.0 with the integrated safety management system with the Department of Energy standard 11/2098 with the provides with the guide with the integrated safety health and fact of the project plan, decommissioning project plan with the equivalent and related with the performance exemption for the part of the step of the existing safety analysis revive it necessary to deflect certified decommission activities planning in the work of the EALARA, the decommissioning making process. Her decommissioning project plans contents. The decommission project plan function for the detailed design of the project if specified with the local agreements made sure for the documentation comment with the regulatory with the other stakeholders scope of the intent of the decommission action to be taken with the scope of the decommission project plan with the draft of the subject for the grade approach for the following topic. Facility descriptive and history of the to provide with the content for the decommissioning the decision and the approach of the project scope of the endpoint for the summary of the characterization results of the technical approach, including the decommission approach to be filed with the technical baseline assumption of the project base management, including approach of the cost schedule for the quality assurance of the project organization training the work environmental protection for the final facility safety, including health and safety plan and the ARA program, how it is applied with the during the planning and safety analysis, waste management plan, criteria of the final site survey. Consistent with the grade approval, the scope of the detail of the decommission project plan will concentrate with the scope of the complexity of the decommission project with the decommission project plan with the equivalent of the documentation should provide with the chain of the control and life of the chain of the control management and drafted on a state-wide base for the when it's complete with the approval of the decommission project plan with the equivalent lower place preliminary project plan with the scope of the document constituting constitute with a new technical call for the schedule baseline with the project will become with technical specification for the performing the work. And planning to consideration defining organization plan with the technical component of the decommissioning project for the program project man with the should consider the number of the factors such factors will vary from site to site may include physical proximity continuing with the operational requirement of land use, the requirement of logical group of the facility activity similarly in structure of the nature of the contamination realistic forecast of available funding relation to proximity soil with the groundwater remedial action project. In particular, the release of the criteria of the committee view of the documentation equipment the the environment over the air, soil, air, groundwater need to be established with planning profit for the decommission problem. The criteria must be established early in the project because they will have significant effect with the technical approach of the schedule of the cost of the project. Radiological criteria of the headship may be depending on the regulatory requirements may impose with the web of the decontamination facility site that will be released with either with or without radiological release. For the release, non-real the Department of Energy for the school with the equivalent of the residual of the debris with the relief of the process for the containment of the handbook controlling relief of the reuse of the recycle of non-real property containing residual radioactive materials for all the steps spelled out in this process for the design and safety requirement of the Department of Energy 5405 of the Radiation Protection and Public Environment notification order as proposed in Title 10 CFR 834-83-4 real property and this is facility inside of the release of the where of the radiological restriction of the release criteria of the development of the baseline guideline of the chapter 4 of the Department of Energy 5405 of the Radiation Protection Public Environment the proposed with the codification Title 10 CFR 3834 of the private establishing release of the criteria of the guideline value of the residual of the radioactive material journal guidelines storm of the radium soil of the airborne radion decayed private external gamma radiation surface contamination residual radionuclides in the air water specified in the order guideline with the radionuclides or the soil of the therm radium must be derived in the end site with a specific basis. Hard to derive sites, so the guidelines hold the remaining structure for the contributor for the base for the radiation limited with the 100 REMRs a year to apply with a member to critical population group with the Department of Energy Material Code RESRAAD, employing realistic pathways and now with the radiation dose with the defined with the effect of the dose of the equivalent to the external radiation plug with the committed with the effect of the dose of the equivalent to the internal radiation. Limit applies to all routines for the Department of Energy activities, not just for the decommissioning project with the radiation dose limited is based with the radiation protection standard requirements specified in the Department of Energy 5405. Authorized limited to define with the conservation radionuclide level of radioactivity must not exceed with the remedial action of the decontamination of the considerable to complete with the scope of the release without radiological restriction. The authorized list of the equal guideline values unless one varies supplemental limited expectations specified in Department of Energy 5405, with which case the authorized limit may set above the corresponding guidelines value with the specific location for the condition where the exemption applies, or two, it can be clearly established for the limits below the guideline variable reasonable with the use of such limited cost benefit shall comply with the appropriate requirement of the Department of Energy 5405. In addition, requiring residual radioactivity to be below the guideline variable, the Department of Energy requires the matter of the policy of residual radioactivity reduce the ALARA levels of the site with regards for over the guideline for the social, economic consideration, well, technical feasibility. You need to take into account in implementing the policy ALARA documents supplied with the Department of Energy actions described in Chapter 4 of the Department of Energy 5405, including establishing authorization limits. Alright, Step 17, conducting documentation of the readiness review, and step the organizational performance of the decommission of the identified with the inquire with the independent with the contract with the in-house with the reach over the express with the small private with the performing organization will make preparation for the field work with the completion of the appropriate detail, proceed with the planning with the additional plan with the training personnel performing the organization involved with the work plan with the described in section 3.1. Work plan has identification Department of Energy standard 1120 with the 98 with the preparation of the detailed work packages. The information contained within the project plan with the base for the development, the detailed work package with the activity specifications, with the work path to provide the safety and health requirements, well with the safety instruct the work responsible for the conduct of the work to be performed at level of the detail of the improvement during the project of the development, and for detail of the work task with the development and non-scope of the staff to identify, evaluate, and control of the facility existing job control system, as identified in section 2.2 with the guide with the principal integrated safety management and integral part of the work package job control system. The effect of the work package is going to include the following items: descriptions of the work scope of activity, identify the type of the head that required for the activity verification and able to perform, but ensure the heads associated with the ends of each of the plan activity documented, share with the work holder together to eliminate steps to eliminate, minimize the reduce the risk over the hazard to an acceptable level of work, permanent density to conduct such work, this training requirement to perform each type of listed equipment and each of the items intended to use, personal protective equipment needed, limited exposure identified, have with the emergency response procedure, the applicable task, discriminate management structure including communication reporting channels, engineering study applicable to the task, expect the result of the plan completion of the task. Has detailed work patch to provide the detail of the work accomplished problem with the doing and such for the work safety, efficiency of the work patch to provide the truck for the project with the activity needs sufficiently inform all the involved parties of the work to be accomplished with documentation of service safety, health impact with the must be verified, evaluated, control of the established privacy over the connection with the commencing with the work. As a final step of the work packet with the plan preparation plan work activity evaluated again with the potential impact with safety authorization facility safety review and conduct with the of the work activity authorized performance facility safety envelope formality rigor. And this step of the process may vary from a hazard classification over the project with the facility to how with the determination impact with the authorization basis and now is essential. Alright, your contracting approach consideration Department of Energy move it over the performance-based contracting with the appropriate operative with the work package with the prepared with the biddable format with extensive feasible practical with sufficient detail with the competitive bidding with the award basis with the max degree of the fixity lump sum of the fixed price for the preferred fixed due with the next preference for the making a decision considering the contractor and project manager will need to consume with a number of factors of it as funding and availability as such for the available meaningful contract with the effort of producing the plan the work with feasible flexibility performance in-house label force the size of the project large project may be sufficient contracted out other than small projects uncertainly scope despite with the reasonable levels of the investigation with the uncertainty of the scope of the treatment of work over the extension of the contamination with cracks under the slab unit practices price may be more than appropriate fixed price contract with the performance for the in-house labor may be appropriate. Alright, your labor source out of the Department of Energy appropriate to refrain with the other qualified production work to perform decommission work they will mainly be weighed Against economic competition, bidding and war with the contractor owned labor source for the bidding with the construction of the table of laborers energy within the local jurisdiction practice related with the demolition needed to be considered. Department of Labor determination at shipping port station for the decommissioned property. The Department of Labor to determine if the lower wage rates so for the contractor actually apply with the decommissioned work rather than construction wage rate with the DFS bacon and with this type of decision have a major effect for the cost larger problem than making a contract approach. Activity specification should focus on what is to be done with the management safety consideration necessary appropriate for the job with the extent of the possible need for the method, the technique, with the left up for the performance of the organization. The performance of the organization provide the detailed procedure of how the work will be performed and crucial with the activity performed under the broadly safety-wide safety with the health and the quality assurance programs. Your readiness review with the performing organization prepare with the appropriate graded readiness review with the conduct and ensure that all of the necessary activities have been completed, documented prior to the safety day. Commission operate for the purpose of the review to minimize the possibility of handling halting progress for the documentation, decommissioning operation, incomplete planning with the preparation, and ensure the during with the decommissioning operation. The readiness review to ensure that all the hazards that have identified appropriate safety have to help the requirement to meet with the safety system with the control of them play with the compatible with the performance identified intended function. The Department of Energy Standard 11/2098 provides further guidance for the checklist preparing readiness review with initiating the decommission projects. It is possible project that have more than one readiness to cover the portion of the project at a separate time of the acquisition of the performance of the contract for the completion of the main with the train program and file with the acquisition especially subcontract for the completion of the detailed procedure with the Apple to do its work, but it is also possible that not all items completed with the before work can start with, for example, the operating procedure of the one over the group activity need to be started with the work while others need to be with the prepared until the course of the project activities should be judgmental of the review group. The items need to be completed in particular stage readiness of the project and keep with the decommission scope of the documentation preliminary project plan. So complete with the decommission project plan identified with the approach of the readiness review that will be for the project. The readiness review conducted with the organization that not directly involved with the day-to-day commission of the decommission project. The result of the conclusion of the review should be the documented review of the include with the list of the open items that must be completed with the before and after the decommission operation. Schedule the prior activities a period of time approximately 1 month shall be considered between the readiness review start of the decommission operation. This will allow the completion of any option identified with the readiness review. 4.5 Decommissioning operation. Step 18. Conducting action with the decommission facility. Step of the performance of the field with the achieve the endpoint state with the decommission project plan equivalent during the decommission of the provision of health and safety plan. Technical specification decommission project with equivalent must be filed with each of the field operation protecting the workers over the public environment that consistently grade approved of the decommission operation waste generated with the being handled complying with the all applicable regulatory requirements. Change the profit should be in place with the ensure the safety of the current with the adequate the documented decommission of 342 with the Department of Energy Standard 11/2098 provide with the guidance band and chain with the address for the worker protection facility safety 3 over the decommission project. Safety health the performance indicated developed in planning favor the documented with the decommission project plan with the minor regulator to ensure they're being met with a timely corrective action with the input with not being met or not being met in the figure 3035 of the Department of Standard 11/2098 provide with additional guidance of safety health performance feedback and evaluation. Alright, step 19. Conducting surveillance maintenance phase out with the during field operation surveillance maintenance activities may be continuing until the phase out in the plan manner Department of Energy G43012 applicable guidance. Step 20. Close out project complete with the decommission project final report. The step of the command provide with the project for the closed activity include with the conducting final facility with the portion thereof with the survey to demonstrate the decommission endpoint with the achieve with the decommission with the complete with the conducting final radiation the chemical survey to demonstrate the project endpoints should be considered the Department of Energy 45505 with the appropriate non-radiological contamination criteria to achieve the service maintenance. See for the achievement of the decommission endpoint unless required with the legal long-term remedial action continuing side with the control pending relief of the transfer of the property of the facility. Independent verification may be required with the verified the decommission endpoints have been achieved with an independent verification necessary if facilities are to be released unrestricted reuse. Decommission projects in which the Department of Energy sole responsibility is closure for the documents that include removal action conservative of the circular with the need of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency of the North State of the signed closure document with no action will be required to remediate site under the circular remedial action. Decommission project under the Department of Energy and Atomic Energy Act Authority rather than circular with the RCRA and NRC. An agreement of state authority dimension of the project with the final report equivalent compared with consistent with grade approach after all of the work has been completed. Verify the final report. Describe the decommission activity accomplishment final facility status and lesson learned. Include evaluation feedback on safety management system. Alright, 4.6 the post-decommission action. The decommission will not always be the final action, particularly with the national priority list sites will follow on the remedial actions to all the water bodies off the complete the cleanup with this for the case of the following reasonability and responsibility include ongoing remedial action program. The name of the type of the posted decommissioning action be necessary for the long-term monitoring. So whether or not remedial action is performed. So step 21, further action required. The step entails evaluating whether or not further action is required. If so, whether further action will be. Step 22, establish long-term monitoring, transfer the remedial action. Additional action for the may include long-term and if appropriate training for site remedial action, final cleanup adjacent soil with the groundwater, continuing site with that control activity necessary pending property, solely release training with another authorized party to administer the action consistent with the decommission end plan, state or site plan. And that was the completion of the book, Department of Energy 43014, September 1999. Decommissioning Implementation Guide, U.S. Department of Energy, Washington, D.C. 20585, UFIS Field Integration.